In this video, I'll be talking about the cross movement and their impact on Christianity and culture.
Hopefully y'all came today, not because somebody pinched you and pulled your ear and made you come, but we're just glad that y'all are here. So as we
The cross movement is a hip-hop group based out of Philadelphia from the 90s. It's centered around the message of the cross of Christ, hence the name the cross movement. And the group consisted primarily of the Ambassador, Fanatic, the Tonic, True Life, Cruz Cordero, Enoch, and Earthquake. Their original, innovative art form demonstrated Christianity in a way nobody had ever seen before. But to understand them, we have to understand the state of hip-hop at that time. The sound of hip-hop is usually accredited to DJ Kool Herc.
Represent.
He developed the production and beat making of hip-hop with innovative DJ tricks to make an original sound. As for hip-hop's themes and more of the rap side, that's often credited to Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5. While there's a lot of rappers that were some of the first, a lot of people bring up Grandmaster Flash because he was a big proponent of conscious hip-hop. Today, we have all sorts of hip-hop genres ranging from people combining rap and country to pop and rap. And we see styles like gangster rap, cinematic, but nowadays we have all sorts of genres of hip-hop. But at the time, hip-hop was normally just what we call today conscious rap or conscious hip-hop. And what that means is it was a proponent of getting a message out, following social themes and life experiences of the artists. You could even say it might be activism in a way. And we really saw this in Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5's song, The Message, where they talked about some of the struggles and themes of urban culture.
Broken glass everywhere, people on the stage, you know they just don't care. I can't take the smell, can't take the noise. Got no money to move out, I guess I got no choice. Rats in the front room, roaches in the back, junkies in the alley with the baseball bat. I tried to get away, but I couldn't get far, cause a man with the tow truck repossessed my car.
If you go back to what was happening in hip-hop at that time, this is the mid-90s. So everything that people know about hip-hop today, in terms of the flashiness and the materialism and the even whether it's gangster or drill rap, gangster rap was just beginning to take hold on the East Coast around that time. What had been popular before gangster rap was conscious rap. So people who were conscious or woke at that time, many of them were the same people that cross movement used to go down to Center City to do these verbal religious battles with. It was the Hebrew Israelites, the Right Knowledge, which was another urban cult, the 5 Percenters, and all of them had a great deal of animus towards Christianity and Christians. And so if you don't know the context and you hear our old music, you think, oh, they must have been for the church because look at how much they're preaching, look at how overtly they are with their message. You put us back in that context and you realize, oh, they were answering all of these attacks from these urban cults.
So cross movement was authentic hip hop. It was conscious rap with the message of the gospel. It was a group addressing social issues and cultural issues, but they brought the gospel to those discussions. So there was no compromise on it being true hip hop and it being true Christianity. But what was cross movement really?
We were all part of different rap groups that broke up somewhere around between 94 and 95. And so now all these groups, we had a two-man group here, a three-man group here, a four-man group there. They all break up, but we stay in fellowship with each other. So now you just got these individuals who's got the same mission, same message, different artistic approaches. So we called ourselves a compilation. Heaven's Mentality, we said, was a compilation album, where I would do 3 solo songs, this guy would do 3 solo songs, he would do 3 solo songs, and then we would do 2 or 3 songs together. Every album we did was either a solo album from one of the members or a compilation album. And on those compilation albums, you still have everybody doing solo songs and then contributing to group songs, and then we toured those albums together.
Now, when it comes to defining what Cross Movement was, it was a record label, it was an organization, it was a rap group, but originally it was just a group of friends with common interests.
We weren't a group, we just were a group of young men who had the same interests, same passions. And people would see us, in Philadelphia, we would hop on a train and go down to Center City to the Gallery. Back in those days, there was a mall in Center City called the Gallery. And we would find ourselves in discussion, either trying to lead other people to Christ, or doing urban apologetics, where we're defending the Christian faith against these urban cults in the city. So Hebrew Israelites and Five Percenters and Nation of Islam, we're all doing battle, defending our faith and trying to convince each other, no, you're seeing the Bible wrong. No, you're seeing the Bible wrong. And at some point, people who saw us together so much started saying, who are you guys? Are you a group? What do you call yourselves? And several of us would get booked to do a show. We'd show up for the concert and see some of our other friends like, yo, they booked you too? And people just kept saying, what are you? Are you a group? Tell us what you are. Like, they would say to Jesus, tell us if you're the Christ. Who are you? People are asking us who we are. And so at some point we just said, you know what, we need to put a name on this. And we started calling it the Cross Movement.
It was a friend group who loved hip hop and loved theology. And they just found each other and they got along, and they would have conversations with people on the streets to talk about what they believed. That's why a lot of their music is from the perspective of those conversations on the street. We even see that in a music video that they have. They spent so much time evangelizing and defending their faith with apologetics that they thought, why not just record this into rap music? So it was evangelistic in that their messages were targeted towards the people they were evangelizing to in Philadelphia. But another aspect of the evangelism was through the production. When it came to lyricism and when it came to the sound that they had, they wanted it to have the highest quality. This way, there was no compromise in quality and no compromise in the message.
You would do what was called bumping them in your ride, putting them in your sound system in your car, and people can hear you coming down the block. They're gonna think that's secular hip hop that you were playing, because it was the secular industry that set the standard for the sound, obviously, and Cross Movement matched that both in the instrumental as well as the quality of the skill in the lyrics. I till this day say you could put Cross Movement up against any secular artist and they will hold their weight and be competitive.
And I decided to take what Tony told me and put it to the test. I searched up on ChatGPT the 5 most iconic East Coast hip hop songs of the 90s, and I started listening to all these different artists.
It was all a dream. I used to read Word Up magazine, Salt and Pepper and Heavy D up in the limousine, hanging pictures on my wall. Every Saturday, rap attack, Mr. Magic.
So my favorite was the Wu-Tang Clan.
I grew up on the crime side, the New York Times side. Staying alive was no job, had second hands. Moms bounced on old men, so then we moved to Shaolin Land, a young youth.
And after listening to all of these artists and getting a feel for what people liked in hip-hop in the 90s, then I listened to Cross Movement. Tony was not wrong.
Newsflash is the ambassador, known for asking ya, do you know the master of the world, the one that's after ya? Had a son that died just to provide a blood bath for ya. You do the math ya, come up with love, that's just his character.
You say, how would they know I had a bunion? Told you to take coins and stuff them in an onion, then put them in a shoebox up in the attic. But make sure that the floor is quadratic. Man, I had it clear up.
These guys were truly making quality music while bringing in and integrating the gospel in their lyrics.
The light of Christ is a blazing one. It's a fight to live right in this major sun. But the grace has come, so we praise the sun and celebrate him, because we know when he saved us from.
And this was a big part of their evangelism as well. If they could have the best quality music and present the gospel in the music, then others, including non-believers, would listen. But I wanted to learn more than just making music about Jesus or making good music about Jesus. I wanted to learn what the specific message of Cross Movement was. Even Fanatic, who I talked to, who no longer believes in Christianity, acknowledged that there was a theme, there was a constant that they could look towards.
even though I don't hold those views anymore, one thing that I do look back at my time as a Christian and my time in cross movement, and I look at that and I say, we were the example of what does it mean to be devoted to something. Because we were not doing it for the money, we were not doing it for the fame. Much of the stuff that we did kept us from getting more famous and getting more money, but we thought great is our reward in heaven. And this was, you look at people who were just spending ourselves, spending our lives, spending our time, our talent, our relationship capital, all of our creativity poured into trying to inform others about Jesus and then form Christ in them.
And when I talked to Tony, he talked about the gospel message being central in their names so that they never wavered from that mission.
With inner city churches in the 90s and somewhat forward from there were for the most part, in our experience, real emotionally based. The awesome thing about the cross movement is they never really tried to be different by saying negative things about someone else, something else, or the churches that they came from, but just tried to help be an influence to move them from emotion only to the right thing to become emotional about, which is the message of the cross. Hence you have the name, the cross movement, that literally is meant to represent an emphasis of the message of the cross. Christ died, and when one recognizes that he or she is a sinner, and Christ died for that, and rose from the dead to give hope of eternal life, in spite of the sin that we've been born with, that should be the thing that lights the fire of anybody's life so much that itself brings change into someone's heart. They really did a good job of centering everything on the cross of Christ, which they rightly assume is the thing that all Christians should come together on, and they were a model of that. They really helped bridge people of different groups through their music, because if you are a Christian, Calvinist, Arminianist, and whatever denomination you may be, you have to be able to get excited about the message of the cross. The discipling impact that they had was helping their listeners understand better and appreciate more deeply the cross.
It also helped that in their albums, they would have interludes talking about what the album's theme was about, what cross movement was about, and what their purpose was. It was always extremely clear.
Whatever message you feel you carry, to be faithful to that. They never thought that they were going to become what they became. But their faithfulness and dedication and seriousness toward their message, so much that they wanted it to be of the highest quality so that the message could be most effectively received, it took off. And when your message is the most important thing to you and everything else follows that, I think people just gravitate toward something that is sincere. You kind of have to not care how big you get. You just have to be clearly and sincerely passionate about every opportunity to carry that message.
And that shows in each of their albums. Heaven's Mentality, House of Representatives, and Human Emergency, their first three albums, really focused on that component of evangelizing to people who have never heard the gospel before and bringing theology to more urban areas.
With the cross movement, which is an alliance of born-again believers in Jesus Christ that are trusting God by His grace to become agents through whom He's going to advertise salvation and also communicate His purpose for all of humanity.
In the next three albums, Holy Culture, Higher Definition, and His Story, I noticed that they had the same message, but the difference was that there was some focus on discipleship of people who have maybe already been saved by the ministry. So while a lot of the music was evangelistic from the church to the culture, this seemed to be music that was both from the church, but also for the church to be benefited by the theology that they were sharing. So we saw some deeper theological themes in their later music. With any new innovation, there's always going to be pushback because things are different than they were before. I wanted to learn about how the church responded to cross movement and how the culture responded to cross movement as well.
A few guys in the city of Philadelphia just happened to find themselves in this very small space of being Christian and being hip-hop flavored and not having any camaraderie in hip-hop because we were Christian and not having much fellowship in the church because we were hip-hop. And so you ended up in this very limited concentric circle where you're these two things and you don't really mix with everybody here or everybody there, but you got that little small section where, hey, you too? Yeah, me too. Baggy jeans, Timberland boots, and a Bible. And so we ended up just, flocking together just on that commonality and camaraderie.
It was obvious that it was difficult for them to find their place because some of the churches didn't want them because the music sounded too worldly to them, and a lot of the culture didn't want them because the music was too much about Christ. But there were some moments and some exceptions. There were a few churches that allowed them to perform and to host events. There were instances where the industry reached out to them as well. One example that was notable to me was the BET performance that they had of House of Representatives. And as I talked to Tony, it became clear that it was difficult for them to accept some of the industry offers that they had because they were really worried about not compromising their message.
So they had to, at times, say no, or I should say did say no to some very lucrative offers that would have, that on the surface could have been seen to really blow them up even more, but where they every time got in a room, prayed, talked, sometimes for hours, sometimes days or weeks, and concluded consistently, this has great potential to send a compromising message about what we're about. So we're going to have to say no. And they didn't want to give off that impression that, oh, they're just another group that started in the church, but once enough money came along, they said, we're going to go after the fame.
And even though they struggled to be accepted by both the church and the culture at times, what they did was they provided a very specific audience a place where they felt like they could fit in for those who cared about urban culture and hip-hop music, but also cared about good theology. These people finally had a place. I've got books here. The reason I have these with me is because I want to talk about the immediate impact that cross movement had, which include the authors of these books. So not only did we see a lot of people hear the gospel and be saved through the ministry of cross movement, I even met somebody recently who was saved because he heard somebody affiliated with the cross movement rapping and sharing the gospel. So we saw that impact on society in the local Philadelphia area. But we also saw it in Christian hip-hop. First, I have Linne, and in his book, The New Reformation, he talks about how when he met the guys in cross movement, he finally had a place that cared about both theology and about hip-hop and urban culture. And so he fit right in, and he decided that he wanted to start writing lyrical theology. And so his music was more intensely theological. It was more music for the church. But his inspiration was the cross movement, where he took a style of hip-hop that they developed, this Christianity, this apologetics, evangelism in hip-hop, and he said, I want to talk about deep theological concepts. And so lyrical theology became a regular thing in the 2000s, largely because of the cross movement's influence.
If it wasn't for the Spirit's mysterious operation, we would all be under serious condemnation. I'd still be rejecting the Son if God hadn't said, let there be light, like Genesis 1.
And next we have Lecrae. He was a later addition to the cross movement. And when he signed with them, he started to put out similar music and eventually went on to be a big part of Reach Records, which was more of an evangelistic mindset of music. And while their message has changed a little bit throughout Reach Records' life, it's largely come back to its beginnings of trying to be more evangelistic and reach people. Lecrae's made a huge impact, and he even tweeted one time something along the lines of, no cross movement, no Lecrae. And so cross movement has made a big contribution to culture just by making a big contribution to Lecrae, who's now known by millions and has impacted millions.
But we ain't been drinking, man. Now this song's just banging, man. Gotta screaming Jesus out the window while we changing lanes.
I'm still in America, where church is a Broadway production for relevance. We traded the kingdom to build an empire, so people don't trust us apparently. We worship economy. We'll kill our own babies to keep our autonomy. You mess with our Second Amendment, we probably gonna riot, but take out the probably.
And lastly, I have KB, and I think the closest we have to the message of cross movement today can be found in KB's music.
Christ Jesus got me through this bittersweetly. I was down to die for this, so canceling is easy.
Man, keep going.
16, I walked to the shooters, told them Jesus saved my life, hallelujah.
While his music is a completely different style, he's not the 90s hip-hop artist, his music is very much the evangelistic gospel message, and he also has the clear point that cross movement has. His music is all based on the phrase, his glory alone, similar to how the cross movement had their focus on the cross. And he's been very careful not to waver away from that message, but that all of his music aligns with that mission statement. That reminds me of cross movement and their mission-minded focus, very similar to KB.
Yeah. One particular artist I think of is KB. I actually met KB when he was a teenager. It was pastors in Tampa, Florida, where he's from. When I was co-pastoring with a friend of mine down there at Crossover Church. And you know, he was as a 18, 19-year-old eating up cross movement, because cross movement was putting out albums at the time. And I'm so blessed to see somebody like him who always also was just so in love with the gospel. He was driven by that message, and I'm blessed to be able to say, in like fashion, whenever I get to see him today, that sincerity has never left or waned or anything.
And so it almost seems to me like the cross movement was almost a thesis statement for a lot of upcoming Christian rap artists and record labels, Reach Records, Lamp Mode Recordings, and others. Most people in Christian hip hop today don't even know what the cross movement is 30 years later, but they've been impacted by the artists like these, and the cross movement's impact, unknown to them, has made a huge difference in their music and in their lives. Not only is the theological themes coming back to Christian hip hop, along with some people experimenting with the 90s hip hop sound, but we also see that outreach evangelistic message. One person I think of is Miles Minnick. He's West Coast and has a much different style of evangelism, but we see him branching out and trying to get the gospel message to as many people and evangelize to the world.
Now roll it loud. If you're ready to accept God into your heart, man, and walk the path He carved out for you, I want you to sing this along with me right here. Everybody say, Christ's life.
He's entering into the culture and bringing the gospel message. We see this also with a lot of independent, smaller Christian artists as well. While they might not have the same community that cross movement has, a lot of their message and music has been inspired because of the work that was done in the past for them. And lastly, the group that really reminds me of cross movement a lot today is Indie Tribe. This is where we see the community aspect of cross movement, a group that works together on mission. And while Indie Tribe might not have a message as explicit as the cross movement or His glory alone, Indie Tribe does have a group of people centered on bringing Jesus to the culture. And you see that group dynamic that feels very similar.
Hey, grave digger, fade giver, debate winner, patient and impatient cause the rage in him, graceless and elated when he's braving him, but the savior took a race into the hate in him, had to face it, need a facelift.
Oh, ain't nothing new about the Christians, it's the same old. Keep my head up to the heavens, but I lay low. Devil tried to bring my sin up, but the case closed. Say you gangster, but a Christian, they don't even make those. I'm discipling a monster, I know Satan hate, bro.
I feel like Peter out the boat and it's windy. I feel like Jones, I'm that Indie Tribe in the zone. Oh yes, Indie, till we adios, we'll be in sync. So give me the cheese if you get the picture. She said I like the way you walk, I got it from the scriptures, right?
And so when I look at cross movement and people talk about how it fell off or how it died over time, My question to them is, did it really die, or did it just turn into all these other elements of Christian hip hop? Some people say the best way to tell that something is successful is for it to be forgotten, because it became so big and so influential that nobody even remembers where it came from anymore. And I feel like that's what the cross movement is to Christian hip hop. I don't think it ever died. I think the message and the idea behind it spread to the rest of Christian rap music even today, almost 30 years later. So in conclusion, I see the cross movement as people just like you and me, broken people in need of God's grace, who God chose to use. They entered into the culture and they brought Christianity with them. And with that, they were able to change our world for the better, for the kingdom of God.